This is a criminal regime in Iran. These guys are gangsters, and they are infused at the same time with this militant Islamic theology. And I don't see them going down quietly. It may be that this conflict continues to grind on much longer than we expect.
Hello and welcome back to the Americano Show. Today we are going to be talking about what else? Donald Trump's aerial strikes on Iran. He toed and froed with the idea for the last few days, and although it looked very much as though he was moving towards the military option, there was some doubt about it on Thursday night when Donald Trump declared that he would make a decision within 2 weeks. But it seems that this was a feint of some sorts because the strikes happened late on Saturday night. I'm delighted to be joined by Jacob Heilbrunn, who is editor of the National Interest, who has been writing a lot about this. Jacob, were you surprised after the Thursday reaction that the strike happened on Saturday?
No, I was not, because I had predicted, I did an interview with L'Express in Paris, and I thought everything was, the incentive structure was aligned for Trump to carry out the strikes because he thought that the Israelis were doing well. He wanted in on the action, and Trump does want to go down in history as a great president. And he can be very bold. And so this was exactly the kind of move that Trump likes to make. I mean, he's talked about annexing Greenland, about taking over Canada. If he can go down as the one president that quashed the Iranian threat, where his predecessors, George W. Bush, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, they all flinched. Trump is the only one that had the cojones, as it were, to pull the trigger.
Well, it is ironic, is it not, that Donald Trump has completed what his late nemesis John McCain wanted to do, which is bomb Iran. And of course, a lot of people within his movement, paleocons, if you like, people at the American Conservative magazine I used to work at, and you know well, are disappointed, to say the least, with him taking this action.
I think the right word would be infuriated. Kurt Mills, our friend who's executive director of the American Conservative, has been joining forces with Steve Bannon and Marjorie Taylor Greene and others who are incensed by this. They see it as betrayal of America first, that Trump was elected to stand up for the common working man, that this is not a strike in America's national interest, and that it plunges us into a fresh forever war. The very thing that brought Trump to prominence in 2016 when he rampaged through the Republican primary by pledging that he would extract us from the Middle East. And in 2024, he ran against Kamala Harris as a peacemaker. Now, as long as this venture in Iran goes well, and the United States does not become entangled, we posit that Trump has not opened a Pandora's box, oil prices do not soar, then the base will accept what he has executed in Iran. It doesn't matter what Marjorie Taylor Greene or others think. They will be dissonant voices in a chorus of overwhelming praise for Trump. But if things go south, then he's in trouble.
Well, another line I'm seeing mentioned a bit, which is interesting. I'm not sure quite how grounded in truth it is, but it is that these strikes might have been performative to the extent that they were spectacular, huge explosions and so on. But depending on what intelligence you read, it seems like those sites were already quite badly damaged. Possibly the Iranians had already moved any enriched materials that the Americans were trying to strike. And that therefore this strike, while being extremely dramatic seeming, was actually a face-saving exercise of sorts.
Not sure about that because I think, dropping those 30,000-ton bombs down those ventilator shafts presumably did more than a little damage to those facilities. The question is exactly how much. Now Trump is now talking explicitly about regime change as well. I don't know if you saw his tweet last night. He said it's time to make Iran great again. Wouldn't regime change be a great thing? Now, this flies in the face of what his other advisors have been saying, but it is tribute to the impulsiveness of Trump. And the Israelis are continuing to bomb Iran heavily and have bombed the Evian prison, where a lot of dissidents were held. Clearly, the Israelis, at a minimum, are trying to reduce Iran to the status of Syria, where they wiped out its military armaments. And maximally, they're looking for regime change.
I did see that True Social post from Trump, and it seemed to me, while very Trumpian in its grammar, it was hedged to a certain extent. I mean, he wasn't saying we want regime change. He was appealing for it among the Iranian people, make Iran great again. But as you say, that will disappoint large numbers of his supporters.
Yeah, no, I don't think Trump has any intention of inserting American ground troops in Iran, a la George W. Bush in Iraq, to topple the regime. But it is interesting that he's willing to embrace the term.
And what happens next? Or, as David Petraeus famously asked, how does this end? That seems to be a fairly pertinent question, and I'm not sure I'm getting strong indications from American senior officials how they think it should end. I mean, do they believe that Iran will now stop pursuing a nuclear weapon? If so, are they delusional? Or do they hope that the Israelis will sort of sort whatever needs to be sorted out and the Iranian regime will collapse in some way that benefits America's interest in the region?
If you enjoy what we do here at Spectator TV, then why not subscribe to the magazine as well? Right now, you can get 12 weeks for just £12 and we'll throw in a free bottle of Pimm's plus a Spectator picture. Go to spectator.co.uk/summer25. This is a UK-only offer.
Well, Trump's aspiration would be that the Iranians would strike a deal with him and that, he's been willing to meet with the Iranian president in Turkey before. So, he would like a diplomatic solution to this, in which he can say that he bombed the facilities and then the regime came to a table and they negotiated some kind of a surrender or peace deal. I wonder, because this is a criminal regime in Iran, these guys are gangsters, and they are infused at the same time with this militant Islamic theology. And I don't see them going down quietly. It may be that this conflict continues to grind on much longer than we expect.
Well, another player in this situation is Russia, because Donald Trump, in his various phone calls with Vladimir Putin in the last few weeks, has talked a lot with Putin about Iran. And it's thought that he was trying to get Putin to put pressure on the Iranians to accept America's terms. We don't know to what extent Putin did try to put pressure on the Iranians, but it certainly seems to be the case that Iran and Russia are in talks at the moment, and Russia has been very critical of the strikes. If there has been a rapprochement between Putin and Trump in recent weeks over Ukraine, perhaps over Iran, do you think that's now scuppered?
I think Putin's has been exposed by Trump's actions in the Middle East. The Russians have lost Syria. They have now lost Iran. It's interesting that the Russians' foreign ministry cited its agreement with Iran on Twitter and noted that there is no mutual defense language in there, that neither side is obligated to come to the other's side in the event of a military incursion. Russia is floundering in Iran now. and there's really not much you can do. The power that seems to have some influence is actually China. The Trump administration has now contacted the leadership in Beijing and requested that it pressure the Iranian leadership not to close the Strait of Hormuz, which would send crude oil prices soaring. Now, it'll be interesting to see how much influence the Chinese have, because the mullahs have their back to the wall now. And, when Trump called for unconditional surrender, at that point, if he really means it, there's nothing to negotiate about it.
And what do you make of the argument that America is always pulled into the Middle East on behalf of Israel, and that the various wars America's got involved in have all been in order to do Israel's bidding in the region? Is that kind of thinking anti-Semitic, paranoid, etc.?
It's wrong. The second Iraq war in 2003 was not done at the behest of Israel. I was with the Israeli ambassador in Washington on the eve of the war and spoke with him and a couple other journalists for about an hour. The lack of enthusiasm was palpable. Israel was never obsessed with Iraq. Now, the war in Iran, you can make a much stronger case that Bibi has set the stage for this war. I mean, he's actually explicitly called for defanging the Iranian threat. Now, given that Iran has been calling for death to America for 30, 40, since 1979, I think you can make a strong case that it is in fact in America's interest to have a regime change in Iran. They have been the fomenter of terrorism in the region. It's not as though the Gulf states or Saudi Arabia find the Iranian model that alluring either. I mean, everyone has been terrified that Iran would become a superpower in the region. Their ambition was to become an Islamic superpower. So, no, I don't think the United States is the cat's paw of Israel.
But you could also make the case that it's overkeeping. The strikes this weekend are in line with Trump's policy towards the Middle East in his first term, which was very much to exert as much pressure as possible, if not maximalist pressure, on Iran, while courting the Gulf states, while trying to make relations better between the Arab Gulf states and Israel. And it was interesting that 2 or 3 weeks, I think, after his speech in Riyadh, Trump has launched this attack, because in Riyadh he went to speak to the MBS, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, the UAE and others. And he said, no longer are we interventionists. We're not going to be people who come in on planes and tell you how to run your country. But that message was not aimed at Iran at all. It was aimed at the Sunni elements in the Middle East who are not who have often been at loggerheads with Iran.
Yeah, I mean, look, if everything goes well, which it usually doesn't in the Middle East, you would have a formal recognition between Saudi Arabia and Israel. You would have something resembling a moderate government in Iran. There is, in fact, no cogent reason that Iran and the United States should be at loggerheads. Henry Kissinger pointed out that the countries have a number of mutual interests, including trade, which Trump is interested in conducting with Iran. So my worry is, however, that we're going to see a spread of further violence, that even if the regime in Iran is toppled, that it could become more of an Iraq scenario where you have different militias emerging, chaos, and that spreads through the region. We are dealing with it as somewhat of an imponderable here.
Well, the chaos could spread west from Iran, and it could spread east from Iran into Pakistan, and that very dangerous border between Pakistan and Iran. And in that case, you would have potentially disruption, chaos, arguably, in a country that already has a nuclear bomb.
Yes, but I would be more concerned about, I think the Pakistani military still has a firm hold on the country. Less concerned about that than I would be. I think the Gulf states are quite concerned about what's taking place in Iran right now.
You mentioned the possibility of a moderate Iranian government. That sounds a little bit rose tinted to me. Also, I would say that it's quite possible that the Iranian opposition, no matter who they are, or the next Iranian government, no matter what it is, will still want a nuclear bomb. I mean, supposedly moderate or even left-wing figures in Iran's past have pushed for Iran to have a nuclear weapon. It's something that Iranians feel that they should have to protect themselves.
That's certainly plausible. And guess who first promoted nuclear power in Iran was, of course, the United States under the Eisenhower administration. And the Shah of Iran was an avid proponent of nuclear power and a nuclear program. So the theocracy that emerged in '79 just took it over and expanded the program. But again, I do think there is, in the positive scenario, and we do wear rose-tinted sunglasses sometimes. We can't preclude, there is obviously a yearning in Iranian society for a less oppressive regime. We've seen protests against this regime. This is not a popular regime. It is devolved into a theocratic gangster regime that has a stranglehold on the country. And obviously the Israelis and Trump now are hoping that something better emerges.
Finally, Jacob, Donald Trump thanked in particular God when he made his statement from the White House about the strikes on Saturday night. Some people find it a bit troubling when American leaders call on God or sort of invoke the Lord as the guiding light of American foreign policy. What do you think about that?
Well, it sort of does have a Gladstonian ring to it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It is a mistake to pursue a foreign policy in Manichaean terms, and it is actually closer to liberal internationalism than to the kind of realpolitik that Trump has professed to pursue. This is why he's causing such ructions in his base. If you listen to Steve Bannon, he's saying that this could be the end of the American empire, that by wading into yet another Middle East conflict, Trump has sabotaged his own America First program and been captured by the neoconservatives. It is John Bolton, Lindsey Graham, Tom Cotton, William Kristol, who are jubilant over this. Kristol even jokingly tweeted whether he should revive the project for the new American century. And someone else joked that can we at least have the Weekly Standard back if a Republican president is going to be bombing another Middle East country? So, Trump is in treacherous waters, I would say.
Well, we don't need the Weekly Standard back. We have the Spectator's US edition, which I recommend everybody subscribes to as soon as possible. It's not as ideological as the Weekly Standard was, but it's as or better written. And one of our best writers is, of course, you, Jacob. So thank you very much for coming on to Americano.
Thank you, Freddie.